Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, SOCA. Master of Science, Food Nutrition, MSc DFSM, revised. Second year, MFN 005 Clinical Therapeutic Nutrition. Unit 16 Nutritional Management of Renal Diseases, 16.1 Introduction. In our previous units, we discussed about gastrointestinal tract disorders and their nutritional management. In this unit, we shall study about one of the most prevalent disorders, that is, renal disorders. We shall first review the basic physiology of kidneys and its functions, which you have already studied in your Applied Physiology course, MFN 001, in Unit 7. We suggest you look up this unit, i.e. Unit 7 once again and revise your knowledge of kidney physiology, as this will help you understand the discussion presented in this unit. Next, in this unit, we will learn about various kidney function tests that involve both biochemical analysis and clinical examination. Later on, we shall get to know about renal diseases such as nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, acute renal failure, ARF, chronic renal failure, CRF, end-stage renal disease, ESRD, etc., along with their dietary management. This would include the list of foods to be excluded during these diseases. Objectives. After studying this unit, you will be able to recapitulate and describe the physiology of the kidneys, discuss the renal function and diagnostic tests, identify different renal disorders, their etiology, clinical and metabolic manifestation, and rationalize the dietary modifications in renal disorders, especially proteins, minerals, and fluids. 16.2 Physiology of the kidney. You will remember from your course in Applied Physiology, Unit 7, that the kidneys are a major organ for excretion of metabolic wastes from the body. Through glomerular filtration, tubular secretion and selective reabsorption that takes place in the nephrons. The functional units of the kidneys maintain the internal balance of body fluids. This includes normal osmotic pressure, composition and volume of blood, acid, base balance and fluid electrolyte balance. Let us elaborate a bit on the kidney functions. 16.2.1 Kidney functions. Figure 16.1 highlights the kidney functions. The primary functions of the kidney include excretion, endocrine, metabolic, excretion, urea, uric acid, creatinine, acid base, electrolyte, water, endocrine function, synthesis of active vitamin D3, erythropoietin for RBC formation, renin and angiotensin for blood pressure regulation, metabolic function, nitrogen metabolism and gluconeogenesis, especially during starvation. You may recall that we studied about the contribution of the kidneys in urine formation and its role in maintaining the pH and performing other regulatory functions in the body in the Applied Physiology course in subsection 7.3.3. Hence, we shall not go into the details of the excretory functions of kidneys here. We suggest you look up the relevant portion in the Applied Physiology course now before you proceed further on this topic. The endocrine and the metabolic function are reviewed briefly next. A. Endocrine functions. The endocrine functions of kidneys include synthesis of active vitamin D3. Kidneys maintain calcium-phosphorus homeostasis, which involves the complex interactions of PTH, calcitonin, vitamin D and 3 effector organs gut, kidney and bone. Kidneys produce active vitamin D3, as well as eliminate both calcium and phosphorus. Vitamin D3, you might be aware, promotes efficient absorption of calcium, Ca, and is one of the substances necessary for bone remodeling and maintenance. Erythropoietin for RBC formation. Erythropoietin, a critical determinant in RBC formation, is produced by the kidneys. Renin and angiotensin for regulation of blood pressure. A lowered blood volume causes the cells of the glomerulus to react by secreting renin, a proteolytic enzyme. Renin acts in the plasma to form angiotensin I, which is converted to angiotensin II, a powerful vasoconstrictor, and a potent stimulus of aldosterone secretion by the adrenal gland. As a consequence, sodium is reabsorbed and blood pressure returns to normal. B. Metabolic function. The main metabolic role of kidney is linked to nitrogen metabolism. However, research indicates that kidneys may also play an important role in glucose counter-regulation. The main purpose of gluconeogenesis, as you may already be aware, is to synthesize glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors. This process occurs mainly in the liver and kidney. The role of kidney in eliminating the end products of protein metabolism is Highlighted next. Nitrogen metabolism. The majority of solute load consists of nitrogenous wastes, which are the end products of protein metabolism. These include urea, uric acid, creatinine and ammonia. In case of inappropriate elimination of these waste products, they get collected in abnormal quantities in blood. The inability of the kidneys to excrete these nitrogen wastes leads to renal failure. Having briefly reviewed the functions of the kidney, can you now suggest what the important outcomes of functions are? These are enumerated next for your reference. Important outcomes of functions. It will be useful to recall, from Unit 7 in the Applied Physiology course, some of the important outcomes of kidney functions. These include, the kidneys have a large blood flow. About 180 L ultrafiltrate is formed at the glomeruli per day, but daily urine output is only 1.2–1.5 L per day. Urine has a specific gravity ranging between 1.003 to 1.030. The mean pH is between the range is 4.7 to 8.0. It contains 90% water, 0.5% solid waste, of which 60% is nitrogenous waste and 40% inorganic salts. For greater solute load, a greater volume of fluid and urine output is required. Healthy kidneys have a capacity to produce urine with wide variability of volume, osmolality and pH. Healthy kidneys can regulate one substance at the expense of another, based on the need. In this context, control of blood volume has priority over other parameters. Healthy kidneys have considerable reserve capacity and health can be maintained, even on half a functional kidney. With progressive impairment, when more than 60% nephrons are damaged, the urine output falls and products of metabolism start accumulating in the body. Gradually, metabolic and endocrine functions also get impaired and renal failure can develop. With this knowledge, we will be able to understand the diagnostic tests for kidney function and various kidney disorders. In relation to treatment, let us then move on to learn about the methods, techniques used to assess kidney functions. 16.3 Assessment of kidney function. Diagnostic tests. The kidney functions can be assessed through various biochemical tests and clinical examination. These are described in this section. Biochemical tests. The kidney function can be assessed through various biochemical tests. These mostly measure glomerular and/or tubular function of the kidneys. As the functional capacity of the nephrons reduces in kidney disorders, changes occur in the blood and urine. Chemistry. The normal values for various parameters of blood and urine are given in the table 16.1 and 16.2. You would recall reading about the renal function tests in your Applied Physiology course, Unit 7 and Section 7.8. We suggest you go back and refer these for a better understanding of the diagnostic tests. Here, however, we present you with a brief review of these tests. So let us get started. Common diagnostic tests to assess renal function include measurement of 1. Plasma, serum concentration of urea, creatinine and uric acid levels of. These tend to increase in blood due to inadequate excretion in impaired kidney function. 2. Serum electrolytes like sodium, potassium, chloride, inorganic phosphorus, and bicarbonate. Their levels may increase or decrease depending on the kidney disorder. 3. Glomerular filtration rate, GFR, is measured by the creatinine clearance. Clearance tests are a measure of the efficiency with which kidneys remove a substance from the blood. Normal creatinine clearance in adults is about 1255 milliliters minute, which can be reduced to 30 milliliters per minute or less when kidneys fail. 4. Alkaline phosphatase in blood. This can be altered as vitamin D synthesis is affected in impaired kidney function. 5. Blood hemoglobin. Its levels are dependent on erythropoietin synthesis. 6. Urine volume and extracellular fluid, ECF, increase or decrease in urine volume and volume of body, based on excretory capacity. 7. Urine examination. Urine analysis for clarity, color, microscopic examination. pH, specific gravity, osmolality and presence of abnormal constituents like blood, protein, casts etc. 8. Urine electrolytes like sodium, potassium, magnesium, especially in tubular disorders, where excess loss may occur. Table 16.1 gives the general normal blood parameters for diagnosis in kidney diseases. However, the levels depends on the local laboratory reference values. Table 16.1, Normal blood parameters for diagnosis in kidney diseases. Blood parameters normal range. BUN, blood urea nitrogen, 7 to 22 mg%. Creatinine 0.8–1.8 mg%. Uric acid 2.4-7.0 mg%. Sodium 132 to 148 meq, L potassium 3.5-5.5 meq, L phosphorus 3.0 -4.5 mg%. Calcium 8.1 to 10.4 mg%. Chloride 98 to 108 meq, L total protein 6.6 -8.7 gm%. Albumin 3.8 -4.4 gm%. Globulin 1.8 -3.6 gm%. A, G ratio 2, 1. Alkaline phosphatase 30 to 150 unit per liter. Total cholesterol 150 to 250 mg%. Triglyceride 0 to 200 mg%. Table 16.2, normal urine parameters. Volume 800 to 2000 milliliters per day. Glucose 0 to 0.8 millimoles, L, 0 to 15 milligrams per deciliter. Renal disorders. 16.4 common renal diseases. Kidney disorders may be infective, inflammatory in origin, or degenerative in nature. With an increasing severity or long duration, these can result in renal failure. Diseases of the kidney may involve the nephrons, tubules, or glomerulus. Inflammation of the nephrons is termed nephritis. Glomerulonephritis, GN, refers to involvement of, specifically the glomeruli. With glomerular damage, usually tubules also get affected. Stones formation can also take place in the kidneys. This is known as renal calculi or nephrolithiasis. Degenerative or vascular disorders can lead to nephrosclerosis, where blood vessels of the kidneys become narrow. This leads to reduced blood and oxygen supply, and hence kidney damage. Kidney diseases may be acute or chronic and have several underlying causes. The treatment is dependent on the disease origin, extent and type of damage and clinical and metabolic outcomes, as kidneys have a direct effect on nutritional status via homeostasis of fluid, electrolytes and nutrients in the body. Diet plays an important role in treatment. Some of the common renal disorders are acute and chronic nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, acute renal failure, dialysis, renal transplantation, renal calculi. The etiological factors for each of these disorders are discussed later in this unit. Under each renal disorder covered separately, you will realize that the management of these disorders also varies. However, there are a few common aspects linked with the dietary management in renal diseases. These general principles are described here next, before we take up each disease separately. 16.5 General Principles of Dietary Management in Renal Diseases. Several common principles apply to the dietary management of various renal diseases. This is because various symptoms, clinical and biochemical manifestations may be common in different renal disorders, as you will find out soon. The main objectives of dietary management in renal diseases are to reduce the excretory work of the kidneys, while maintaining as near normal fluid, acid base and electrolyte balance, maintain satisfactory nutritional status, prevent progression of renal damage and development of uremia, accumulation of nitrogenous waste products in blood. To meet these objectives, modifications in the diet are required mainly for A. Proteins, B. Electrolytes, especially sodium and potassium, C. Fluids. Let us now understand the general dietary principles. Energy, it should be normal or increased in case of weight loss. A simple diet low in proteins, moderate to high in carbohydrates and unsaturated fats is preferred. Protein, the amount of protein to be given is dependent on GFR. Proteins must be enough to prevent muscle wasting and malnutrition, but it needs adjustment to prevent accumulation of nitrogenous wastes in the blood and uremia. Good quality proteins from milk and eggs are recommended to meet the body's need of essential amino acids and yet not burden the body with excess non-essential amino acids. Electrolytes. 1. Sodium intake mostly needs restriction depending on whether it is retained in the body or excessive loss in urine occurs. Retained sodium and water can result in edema, hypertension and congestive cardiac failure, CCF. 2. Potassium, K, if retained, needs restriction to prevent hyperkalemia, excess K in blood, which can result in cardiac arrest. Both electrolytes, if lost in excess amounts in urine, may need replacement. Vitamins and minerals. 1. Calcium may require supplements in chronic or severe cases along with vitamin D. 2. Phosphate mostly needs restriction as it tends to be retained in the body. 3. Iron supplements are needed with impaired erythropoietin synthesis. 4. Vitamin B and C supplements are required due to increased needs in renal patients. Fluid, this mostly has to be restricted due to a fall in the GFR in most patients. If, however, polyuria occurs, fluid needs may increase. If you have understood these basic principles, you will be able to modify the diet in various renal disorders on a more rational basis, as you will find out while learning about the various renal disorders described next. 16.6 Acute and chronic nephritis. We shall learn how to plan diets for most of the renal diseases being discussed in this chapter in the Practical Manual 005. As mentioned earlier, nephritis refers to the inflammatory disease of the nephrons due to infection, degenerative processes, or vascular disease. In most cases, the inflammatory process affects the capillaries of the glomeruli. This disorder is termed as glomerulonephritis, GN. There may be damage to the tubules also. The most common and well understood of the different types of glomerulonephritis is post-streptococcal proliferative glomerulonephritis, about which we will discuss here. In this section, GN may be self-limiting or progress to serious renal damage. Let us learn about the etiology, clinical and metabolic manifestations, and dietary management of glomerulonephritis next. 16.6.1 Etiology. Acute form of glomerulonephritis is commonly seen in 3 to 10-year-old children, although in 5% or more cases the initial attack occurs in adults past the age of 50 years. Previous streptococcal infection, 7 to 20 days prior to onset, is a common cause of this disease, and antigen-antibody reaction is mostly the basis of damage of nephrons. In acute glomerulonephritis, there is a usually sudden onset and the condition is usually completely cleared in a year or two. In chronic cases, progressive renal damage occurs involving an increased amount of renal tissue, eventually requiring dialysis and other support treatments. 16.6.2 Clinical and metabolic manifestations. Classic symptoms include gross hematuria, presence of blood in urine, and proteinuria. Protein in the urine. Due to sodium and water retention and circulatory congestion, varying degree of edema with shortness of breath may be observed. The patient generally is anorexic, which results in feeding problems. If the disease leads to renal insufficiency, oliguria, reduced urine output, or anuria, no urine output, occurs, which indicates chances of development of acute renal failure. The summary of the clinical symptoms is presented in Box 16.1. Box 16.1 Clinical symptoms of glomerulonephritis. The clinical manifestations include fever, i.e. elevation of body temperature above 98.40 F or 37 degrees Celsius. Uremia, accumulation of nitrogenous waste products and other urinary constituents in blood, particularly hematuria and proteinuria. Edema, fluid and electrolyte retention in tissues. Hypertension, systolic and diastolic blood pressure above 128ths of a millimeter Hg. Oliguria and anuria because of reduced GFR. Having learnt about the disease and its symptoms, let us next get to know about the dietary management of this problem. 16.6.3 Dietary management. Keeping in mind the general objectives of dietary management and principles of dietary modifications already discussed earlier in section 16. 4. The following dietary guidelines is recommended. Calories. A high-energy diet is recommended to spare the proteins for tissue repair rather than being used for energy. Adults may need 30 to 40 kilocalories per kilogram dry weight and children about 100 kilocalories per kilogram dry weight or more, based on age. Increased energy requirements are also recommended since elevation of body temperature, i.e. fevers, may be present in patients with glomerulonephritis. Elevation of body temperature results in increase in basal metabolic rate, BMR, and hence the energy intake may be increased to about 10% from the level suggested by RDI. Proteins, blood urea nitrogen, BUN, and oliguria determine the restriction of protein in the diet. Initially, 0.6 to 0.8 grams protein per kilogram ideal body weight, IBW, is provided using principally high-quality protein. Normal levels of protein, 1 gram per kilogram IBW, may be provided. If BUN levels remain within the normal range, emphasis should be to include good quality protein or proteins of high biological value. Milk and milk products, egg white, meat after leaching etc. in the diet of the patients. Carbohydrates. Liberal carbohydrate intake is important for protein-sparing action, for reducing catabolism of protein, as well as for preventing starvation ketosis. Both simple carbohydrates such as sugar, as well as complex forms such as starches can be included in the diet. Fats. Based on tolerance levels, fat is included to provide non-protein calories for energy needs. Being energy dense, Fat reduces the bulk of the diet and makes the diet more palatable. It can vary from 30 to 35% of total calories. Sodium. The restriction of sodium is dependent on the degree of oliguria and hence sodium retention. If renal function is impaired, sodium may be restricted to 500 to 1000 mg per day. With recovery, the intake may be increased. A list of sodium-rich foods is included in Table 16.2 for your reference. Also refer to Table 11.6 in Unit 11 for low sodium food items. You may need to avoid these foods in the diet of the patient suffering from nephritis. Table 16.2, foodstuffs high in sodium. Baking soda, salt, Ajinomoto, salted wafers, popcorns, salted biscuits, salted namkeens, papads all varieties, salted pickles, chutneys, curry powder commercial salad dressings and sauces, soup cubes, soft drinks containing sodium benzoate, bakery products, bread, biscuits, patties, cakes etc. Salted nuts such as cashew nuts, pistachio, walnuts, peanuts. Commercial processed cheese, foods containing preservatives such as noodle mixes, pastas, canned and tinned foods, salted or canned meat, seafood, chicken, dry fish, bacon, ham, meat and yeast extracts like Marmite. Proprietary drinks Bournvita, chocolate drinks, Horlicks. Potassium. In case of oliguria, renal clearance of potassium is impaired resulting in hypokalemia, increased level of potassium in blood. In the initial stages, therefore, potassium may have to be restricted to 1200 to 1500 mg per day. In addition, fruit, juices, nuts and coconut water may be restricted or avoided, as they are rich in potassium. Fluid. Intake of fluids needs to be restricted in case of reduced GRF and oliguria to 500 to 700 ml per day plus the volume of urine output in previous 24 hours. Without oliguria, fluid intake may be normal. Dietary guidelines for acute chronic nephritis are summarized in Table 16.3. Table 16.3, Dietary Guidelines in Nephritis. Nutrients comments. Protein bun and oliguria determine the protein restriction. Give 0.6 to 0.8 grams protein per kilogram of ideal body weight and then increase gradually, depending on bun values. Kilocalories. Adults given 30 to 40 kilocalories per kilogram dry weight and children about 100 kilocalories per kilogram dry weight based on age. Sufficient. Simple and complex carbohydrates have a protein-sparing action. Fat should be given based on tolerance. Sodium depends on sodium retention and is restricted to 500 to 1000 mg per day. Potassium restriction to 1200 to 1500 mg per day, especially if excess in blood. Hypokalemia. Fluid. If reduced GRF and oliguria, restrict to an amount equal to urine volume plus 500 milliliters. With this, we end our study on nephritis. Next, we shall take up the nephrotic syndrome and understand the dietary management of this disorder. 16.7 Nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome is a disorder where the kidneys have been damaged, causing them to leak protein from the blood into the urine. It is a fairly benign disease when it occurs in childhood, but may lead on to chronic renal failure, especially in adults. Nephrotic syndrome is also termed as nephrosis. This disorder is characterized by massive edema and proteinuria resulting from degenerative lesions of the tubules. Mesangium, central part of the renal glomerulus, or basement membrane of the glomeruli. What is the cause for these degenerative lesions to occur? Let us find out. 16.7.1 Etiology. There are many etiological factors that cause a nephrotic syndrome. Progressive glomerulonephritis, disease such as diabetes, collagen disease or drug reactions, from exposure to heavy metals, or even from a reaction to toxin venom following a bee sting can cause this syndrome. The clinical manifestations of this disorder are highlighted next. 16.7.2 Clinical and metabolic manifestations. Nephrotic syndrome is characterized by massive edema and proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, hypercholesterolemia and abnormal bone metabolism. Let us get to see how this happens. Degenerative lesions of the capillary basement membrane of the glomeruli lead to loss of the glomerular barrier to protein. Large amount of proteins, up to 4 to 10 grams per day, are thus lost in the urine as albumin. This proteinuria results in plasma proteins being substantially lowered and causing massive hypoproteinemic edema to occur due to reduction in plasma albumin, which is mainly responsible for maintaining balance between tissue and circulating fluids. Pedal, foot, and periorbital, around the orbit of the eye, edema and ascites, fluid in abdominal cavity, are common. Other proteins, Lost include globulins, thyroid and iron-binding protein. The continued loss of proteins results in tissue breakdown and malnutrition, often masked by the edema. Development of fatty liver and sodium retention worsens the edema. Another feature of this disorder, linked to hypoproteinemia, is elevation of serum lipids, especially cholesterol, to above 300 mg per deciliter. Nephrotic syndrome may be characterized by spontaneous period of remission and exacerbation. As the disease progresses, calcium or phosphate levels in blood may be altered due to altered vitamin D levels, resulting in renal osteodystrophy and osteomalacia. From our discussion above, it is evident that nephrotic syndrome occurs due to loss of proteins in the urine in large quantities, which reduces the amount of protein in blood. So, then what is the dietary management for this disorder? The next section presents a detailed review on this aspect. 16.7.3 Dietary Management. The major objectives of dietary management are 1. To control and correct protein deficiency, and 2. Correct and prevent edema, and 3. Maintain adequate nutrition to afford better resistance to infection. To help meet this objective, the dietary guidelines include calories, high daily intake of 35 to 40 kilocalories per kilogram of ideal body weight for adult and about 100 kilocalorie per kilogram or more for children is prescribed so as to conserve proteins. This ensures adequate amount of energy and optimal utilization of protein for tissue synthesis. Protein, the major cause of nephrotic ascites and edema, is reduction of 20% or less than normal value in plasma albumin level. Proteinuria can be greater than or equal to 3.5 grams per day, and serum albumin can reduce up to 3 grams per deciliter or even more. Therefore, during the past, these patients were received high protein intake in order to replenish lost protein and to increase serum albumin levels. However, new studies have come up showing that protein intake 0.8 grams per kilogram IBW plus 1 gram per gram of proteinuria helps in decreasing protein loss in urine without adversely affecting serum albumin. Foodstuffs rich in protein are cow's milk, skimmed milk, eggs, fish, dry fish, chicken, lean meat, paneer made from cow's milk, cheese, sprouts, pulses and legumes. At least 60 to 70% of this protein should be of good, high biological value, milk and milk products, egg whites and meats. Carbohydrates, a high carbohydrate intake is recommended for the protein sparing action. Fat, high amount of fats should be avoided as the cholesterol and triglyceride levels tend to be high in patients with nephrotic syndrome. The diet must be high in calories. Patients refer to table 16.2 given earlier, which presents the foodstuffs high in sodium. Avoid these foods in the diet of the nephrotic syndrome patient. Diuretics are usually used to prevent further edema. Potassium, if oliguria and anuria is not present, potassium restriction is not necessary. In fact, adequate potassium is important as losses may occur due to tissue protein breakdown and diuretic use. Calcium, if deficiency of calcium results leading to bone rarefaction, increased calcium intake or calcium supplementation is recommended along with moderate increase in protein. Fluid may be normal unless GFR is reduced. The dietary guidelines described above are summarized in Table 16.4 for easy reference. Table 16.4, Dietary Guidelines for Nephrotic Syndrome. Nutrients comments. Calories for adults 35 to 40 kilocalories per kilogram, IBW, and children 100 kilocalories per kilogram. Sufficient calories provide for optimum utilization of proteins. For tissue synthesis, protein 0.8 grams per kilogram IBW, 1 gram per gram of proteinuria. Fluid normal unless GFR is reduced. 16.8 Acute kidney injury, acute renal failure. Acute renal failure, ARF, now referred to as acute kidney injury, AKI, is a rapid loss of renal function due to damage to the kidneys, resulting in retention of nitrogenous urea and creatinine, and non-nitrogenous waste products that are normally excreted by the kidney. Depending on the severity and duration of the renal dysfunction, this accumulation is accompanied by metabolic disturbances, such as metabolic acidosis, acidification of the blood, and hyperkalemia, elevated potassium levels, changes in body fluid balance, and effects on many other organ systems. It can be characterized by oliguria or anuria, decrease or cessation of urine production, although non-oliguric. ARF may occur. It is a serious disease and treated as a medical emergency. Acute renal failure, in fact, is a sudden loss of the ability of the kidneys to excrete waste, concentrate urine and conserve electrolytes. It is a serious condition. characterized by a sudden shutdown of kidney function as mentioned above due to decreased renal flow, acute glomerular or tubular damage. It results in a decline in glomerular filtration rate, GFR, usually associated with azotemia, accumulation of nitrogenous waste products in the blood, and a fall in urine output. ARCI can also be classified according to the severity of disease. The causes for this serious condition are discussed next. 16.8.1 Etiology. Several conditions can lead to ARCI. These include circulatory shock, large blood loss and reduced renal blood flow as in traumatic injury, shock, severe burns, surgery, septicemia, dehydration and fluid loss. Mismatched blood transfusions, nephrotoxins like carbon tetrachloride, certain poisonous mushrooms, infections, snake bite, bee stings etc. Immunological reactions to drugs like certain antibiotics, and renal disease like acute glomerulonephritis. The most common cause is altered renal hemodynamics or ingestion of nephrotoxins. What then are the clinical manifestations of this disorder? Let us find out. 16.8.2 Clinical and metabolic manifestations. The onset of ARF is sudden, with the course of the disorder having two phases. Namely, A. Oliguria or initial acute phase, and B. Diuretic phase. The latter indicates restoration of renal function, although it may still remain poor for several days. The major clinical features of AKI are oliguria or anuria, urine output 20 to 200 ml, due to drastic reduction of GFR to 1 to 2% of normal. Along with this, hematuria and proteinuria are usually present. There is an elevation of serum urea nitrogen and creatinine due to reduced GFR and tissue protein breakdown. Uremia may develop, along with associated symptoms like disorientation, lethargy, nausea, vomiting and anorexia. Blood pressure elevation and increased levels of potassium, phosphate and sulfate occurs with lowered levels of sodium and bicarbonate. Water balance is a crucial factor and unless controlled, the condition can prove fatal mostly due to potassium intoxication or excess fluid retention leading to cardiac failure. Return to renal function is characterized by an increase in urine output or diuresis. When diuresis is established, the urine volume gradually increases to between 3 to 5 liters per day and the excretion of sodium, potassium, urea and other solutes also increase. The blood urea falls to normal in 7 to 10 days, indicating that glomerular filtration has effectively improved. Although the excretory function of kidney is restored, the recovery of regulatory function of the tubules is slower. The internal environment of the patient is still at risk because of excessive losses of water, sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, and magnesium. In majority of patients, the kidneys will recover with little or no residual damage if the patient can survive the oliguric phase. However, in a few cases, residual damage of tubular function may sometimes be detected even long after the blood urea has returned to normal levels. Having gone through the discussion above, you would realize acute renal failure is a medical emergency. Management of the life-threatening complications becomes very important. Diet too plays an important role. We shall learn about the dietary management next. 16.8.3 Dietary management. In ARCI, the common nutritional problems include 1. Poor appetite, 2. Inability to take food or fluids orally due to intubation, and 3. Hypercatabolism, increased metabolism, due to underlying illnesses such as infection, postoperative healing. Diet therapy in acute kidney injury, ARCI, therefore, focuses on re-establishment of fluid electrolyte balance, maintenance of acceptable levels of blood urea and creatinine while supporting tissue healing and making up catabolic losses, and preventing infection. With conservative medical and diet treatment, recovery may occur within a few days or weeks. However, if oliguria continues with a rise in nitrogenous wastes and potassium, aggressive therapy including hemodialysis may be required with nutritional support. Thus, dietary management is a challenge and plays an important role. Oral feeding is best, but if nutritional support is needed, caution is necessary to avoid fluid overload and uremia. The dietary guidelines for acute renal failure include calories. In most adults having ARCI with normal catabolic state, energy requirement amounts to 25 to 30 kilocalories per kilogram body weight, with up to 30 to 35 kilocalories per kilogram for hypercatabolic cases because of increase in energy expenditure by 10 to 30%. The major source of energy is carbohydrates followed by fat. An intake of 100 to 200 grams or more of sugar. Glucose per 24 hours is administered when the oral intake is poor because of vomiting. and diarrhea. Children need enough calories to support growth. In some cases, enteral or parental non-protein concentrated calories sources may have to be provided because of fluid restriction. Protein, unnecessarily excessive protein restriction should not be practiced in ARCI, with the aim to delay renal replacement therapy, RRT. Therefore, KDIGO, 2012, recommends 0.8-1.0 grams per kilogram per day of protein in non-catabolic ARCI patients without need. For dialysis, patient on RRT should consume 1.0-1.5 grams per kilogram per day up to a maximum of 1.7 g per kilogram per day for CRRT patients. With improvement, at least 60 to 70% of good quality proteins are recommended to reduce unnecessary nitrogen load. In case total parenteral nutrition, TPN, is required, a balanced amino acid solution containing both essential and non-essential amino acids should be administered. In addition to essential amino acids, arginine, histidine, serine, taurine and tyrosine may be recommended. Sodium, during the oliguric phase, sodium may need to be restricted to 500 to 1000 mg, 20 to 40 mEq, daily. It can be liberalized with onset of diuresis. Potassium, since hypokalemia is a life-threatening complication of acute renal failure, it needs to be treated urgently. Potassium intake is restricted to 1000 to 2000 mg, 25 to 50 mEq, and should be monitored strictly and regularly. As the renal function improves, the intake may be increased. Fluid intake is based on fluid balance but is usually restricted to a basic allowance of 500 ml per day for an average adult with addition made for losses via other routes. The fluid allowance is usually regulated in accordance with urinary output and any additional losses from vomiting or diarrhea. Strict monitoring of fluid balance is important. The patient's weight and blood sodium levels are good indicators of fluid balance, and the amount of fluid required. If fluid intake is not adequate for excretion of metabolic wastes, dialysis is usually recommended. The dietary guidelines enumerated above are summarized in Table 16.6 for your easy reference. Table 16.6, Dietary Guidelines in Acute Renal Failure. Nutrients comments. Protein if not on dialysis, 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram per day. If on RRT, 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram, and if on CRRT, up to 1.7 grams per kilogram per day from dietary or parenteral sources. Calories provide sufficient amount for weight maintenance and to provide the balance between energy. Encourage non-protein calories from fats and simple carbohydrates. Sodium in oliguric phase, restrict to 500 to 1000 mg, 20 to 40 mEq. On diuresis, the amount may be increased. Potassium if hypokalemia is present, restrict to 1000 to 2000 mg, 25 to 50 mEq. On improvement, increase to 60 to 70 mEq. Fluids, limit fluids to an amount equal to urine volume plus 500 ml. 16.9 Chronic RENALFAILURE, CRF. Chronic renal failure is a slow progressive loss of renal function over a period of months or years and defined as an abnormally low glomerular filtration rate, which is usually determined indirectly by the creatinine level in blood serum. CRF, therefore, is a condition that arises due to advanced and progressive damage of kidneys with impairment of renal function. Few functional nephrons remain, and CRF results in what is usually termed uremia. Uremia, you may already know by now, is a toxic condition resulting from renal failure, when kidney function is compromised and urea, a waste product normally excreted in the urine, is retained in the blood. Unlike acute renal failure, with its sudden reversible failure of kidney function, chronic renal failure is a gradual and progressive loss of the ability of the kidneys to excrete wastes, concentrate urine, and conserve electrolytes. CRF can range from mild dysfunction to severe kidney failure. CRF that leads to severe illness and requires some form of renal replacement therapy, such as dialysis, is called end-stage renal disease, ESRD, about which we shall learn in the next section. Stages of CKD are classified in Table 16.7. Table 16.7, Stages, Classification of CKD. GFR category CFR, milliliter per minute, 1.73 square meters, terms. G1 greater than 90 normal or high. G2, 6089 mildly decreased. G3 a 45 to 59 mildly to moderately decreased. G3b 30 to 44 moderately to severely decreased. G4, 1529 severely decreased. G5. Calcification of soft tissues is another complication that can develop. Other clinical features include anemia due to impaired RBC synthesis. Hypertension arises due to stimulation of the renin-angiotensin system by the reduced renal blood flow, resulting in vasoconstriction. The resultant cardiovascular damage worsens renal function. Other related symptoms are shortness of breath and fatigue. Azotemia and other metabolic changes cause anorexia, weight loss, gastrointestinal irritability, nausea, vomiting and diarrhea. Subcutaneous nasal or GI bleeding can occur due to increased capillary fragility, mouth ulceration, taste changes, neurological symptoms, increased susceptibility to infection due to malnutrition also commonly observed. Controlling the symptoms, minimizing complications, and slowing the progression of the disease, therefore, is the main focus for the management of CRF, particularly THE. Dietary management, which is discussed next. 16.9.3 Dietary management. Feeding is a challenge in CRF as anorexia and taste changes reduce food intake. The main focus of dietary management is on protein, sodium, potassium, phosphate, water, and adequate non-protein calories. Individual modifications are required based on clinical profile, treatment and response of the patient. Keeping in mind the general objectives of diet treatment in renal disease, the following modifications are required. Energy, about 2000 to 2500 kilocalories per day are recommended, or 30 to 35 kilocalories per kilogram per day for adults, and about 100 to 150 kilocalories per kilogram per day for children. If the calorie intake is inadequate, endogenous protein catabolism and gluconeogenesis occur to supply energy and further aggravate uremia. Therefore, 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates are recommended. Protein needs to be restricted. However, enough has to be provided to minimize tissue catabolism. About 0.6 grams per kilogram per day is recommended but has to be regulated depending on declining renal function. A protein intake of 35 to 40 grams per day, 60 to 70% of high biological value protein, for a 60 kilograms adult with liberal calorie intake can maintain the nitrogen equilibrium for long periods while reducing azotemia. However, patients who are unable to maintain adequate dietary intake with such a low protein prescription can be increased up to 0.8 grams per kilogram per day. High biological value proteins from milk and eggs are recommended to provide all the essential amino acids. Paneer can be given in milk exchange as potassium, phosphorus would get leached out in whey water. To reduce the nitrogen load, in advanced cases, mixture of essential amino acids or nitrogen-free precursors of the essential amino acids like keto or hydroxy analogues may be recommended. The potential benefits of protein restriction include decreases glomerular hyperfiltration, which may slow progression of glomerulosclerosis. Protein-restricted diets are phosphorus-restricted, which delays onset of renal secondary hyperparathyroidism and may slow progression of glomerulosclerosis. Reduces proteinuria in glomerulopathies. Reduce net acid load. May reduce serum lipids. Improves the symptoms of uremia. Sodium intake will vary between 500 mg to 2.0 grams per day. Weight loss and decreasing urine volume usually indicate a need for additional sodium, whereas if hypertension and edema are present, the sodium intake needs to be restricted. Potassium, the failing kidney cannot excrete potassium adequately and therefore, intake is kept at about 1500 mg per day, 35 to 40 mEq per day. The potassium intake has to be adjusted to maintain normal levels in blood. If the serum potassium level is normal, there is no need to severely restrict the dietary intake of potassium. In severe vomiting and diarrhea, significant losses of potassium can occur, and in these conditions, careful potassium supplementation may be needed. Potassium content of various vegetables and the methods of leaching potassium are given in subsection 16.11.4. Read this information carefully. Calcium and phosphorus. To maintain calcium and phosphorus balance and prevent or delay renal bone diseases, calcium supplements, 1 to 2 grams per day, with a maximum of 1500 mg from phosphate binders are recommended, and phosphate is restricted to 800, 1200 mg per day or 10 to 12 mg per gram of protein. Phosphate binding agents may be used if required to reduce absorption. Calcium carbonate supplements can help buffer metabolic acidosis, if present. It is important to remember not to start calcium supplements unless phosphate is restricted. Details related to commonly available commercial enteral nutrition formulas for renal patients. is given later in section 16.12. You may like to review these formulas now. So go ahead and review these formulas. The summary of the dietary guidelines for CRF is given in table 16.6 for your ready reference. Table 16.6, Dietary Guidelines for CRF. Nutrients comments. Energy 30 to 40 kilocalories per kilogram per day for adults and 100 to 150 kilocalories per kilogram day for children. Carbohydrates 300 to 400 grams per day to avoid endogenous protein catabolism, gluconeogenesis and subsequently uremia. Proteins 0.6 to 0.8 grams per kilogram per day, with 60 to 70% as high BV protein. 2. Reduce N2 load. A mixture of essential amino acids is recommended. Sodium 500 mg minus 2.0 grams per day. Additional NAR in case of weight loss, and decreasing urine volume and restriction of NAR in case of edema and hypertension. Potassium intake must be kept at 1500 mg per day, 3.0 MEq per day. And in case of significant losses, potassium supplements should be given. Calcium and phosphorus. Calcium supplementation 1 to 2 grams per day and phosphate to be restricted to 800 to 1200 mg per day. Vitamin multivitamin supplements, especially vitamin D3. Fluid intake is dependent on urine output and water balance. 16.10 End stage RENALDISEASE, ESRD. Do you know that in India, with a population of more than 1 billion and approximate 100,000 patients develop ESRD? Of these, 90% never see a nephrologist and 10% who do consult a specialist find it difficult to afford the treatment. The condition when kidneys have lost all or most of their ability to function with GFR. These sections to understand what is dialysis and renal transplant. This information will help you understand the dietary management elaborated here in this section. 16.10.1 Dialysis. So what does the process of dialysis involve? Yes, the process of dialysis involves cleansing the blood of metabolic wastes, based on the principle of osmosis and diffusion. A semi-permeable porous membrane is used in dialysis to separate the patient blood carrying excess fluid and metabolic wastes and the hypertonic dialysis fluid, called dialysate. Through osmosis and diffusion, the metabolic waste and excess water move into the dialysate. The pores of the semi-permeable membrane do not permit large particles like protein and RBC to pass through, but smaller water-soluble molecules can pass. You may also recall studying that there are two types of dialysis. These include A. Hemodialysis and B. Peritoneal dialysis. A brief review of these two types follows. Hemodialysis, HD. In this, patient's blood circulates outside the body through what is commonly referred to as an artificial kidney machine. An opening is created to connect an artery and a vein. Blood leaves the body via the artery into the dialyzer, and after cleansing, flow back to the body via the vein. Peritoneal dialysis, PD. In this, the patient's peritoneum is used as the semi-permeable membrane and excess water and metabolic wastes are removed by injecting the dialysis fluid into the peritoneal cavity as illustrated in figure 16.5. After some time, the fluid with the metabolic waste is drained out from the peritoneum. Peritoneal dialysis is less effective than hemodialysis and can result in loss of intact large molecular proteins also. For long-term use, continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis, CAPD, may be used based on facilities available. In this, the dialysis fluid is exchanged 4 to 5 times daily. It is also important to prevent, control infection. In some cases, continuous cyclic peritoneal dialysis CCPD or intermittent peritoneal dialysis, IPD, may be used. What is the role of dietary management during dialysis is discussed next. 16.10.2 Dietary management during dialysis. Once dialysis is started, the diet in ESRD can be L1 liberalized, taking care that accumulation of metabolic wastes and water is prevented between treatments and biochemical balance is maintained. The objectives of dietary management thus are to maintain balance of protein, energy, fluid and electrolytes, calcium and phosphorus, while making up losses of water-soluble nutrients lost during dialysis. The dietary guidelines include energy, up to 30 to 35 kilocalories per kilogram per day for adults and 100 kilocalories or more per kilogram per day for children. Is recommended to meet the body needs and minimize tissue protein breakdown. Care must be taken while prescribing energy needs for peritoneal dialysis patients, because the dialysate also contains glucose which can account for 300 kilocalories or more. Depending on the PD regimen, fats and carbohydrates are the main energy sources used. Some restriction of total and saturated fats may be needed, as dialysis patients are prone to cardiovascular disease. Protein, the requirement is increased due to losses during dialysis. About 15 to 25 grams of protein can be lost during one dialysis treatment. Therefore, the protein requirement in hemodialysis are 1.2 grams per kilogram per day, and in peritoneal dialysis it is 1.2 minus 1.3 grams per kilogram per day provided. 50 to 60% of these should be of high biological value, e.g. milk, egg, fish, chicken. While considering potassium, sodium, a daily intake of 1500 to 2500 milligrams may be permitted to control fluid retention and hypertension. This restriction helps to prevent pulmonary edema or congestive heart failure because of fluid overload. Regular assessment of the kidney's ability to handle sodium and water is important to determine the intake. Potassium, a daily intake of 1500 to 2500 milligrams is prescribed to prevent hypokalemia. Potassium accumulations easily cause cardiac arrhythmias or cardiac arrest. Phosphorus, this may need some restriction. Daily requirement is 800 to 1200 milligrams if the serum phosphorus levels rise above 5.5 mg per deciliter or PTH levels are greater than 300 pg per milliliter. Vitamins and minerals, a daily supplement of water-soluble vitamins and minerals are usually given, as these are lost in the dialysate. Fat-soluble vitamins may be retained. Thus, their supplements are avoided except vitamin D. Supplements of minerals like calcium, iron and zinc are recommended. Fluid requirements are individualized, usually 400 to 500 milliliters. Basal losses, plus the urine output is recommended. The fluid intake must take into account all sources of fluid input and output to maintain balance. Mild fluid retention between treatments usually occurs. Patient counseling and support is an important part of dietary management to help renal patients understand their dietary modifications, the foods permitted and those to be avoided. Counseling about the ways to increase the palatability of the restricted diets can encourage the patient to increase their dietary intake. Next, we move on to kidney transplant. 16.10.3 Kidney transplantation. Kidney transplantation, you may recall studying, is a procedure that surgically places a healthy kidney from a donor into the recipient's body. This new kidney does the work of the failed kidneys. Donated kidneys may come preferably from blood relatives, after tissue and blood matching. Success of kidney transplant has improved with the use of immunosuppressive drugs and steroids to prevent organ rejection and infection. Post-transplant nutritional support is required for this major surgical procedure. Optimal energy and protein intake are important for recovery, as you may recall studying earlier in Unit 5 dealing with surgery. Initially, while on medication, some restriction of sodium, simple sugars, total fat, cholesterol and saturated fat may be required. This is because of the side effects of immunosuppressant and steroids. Transplant recipients are at high risk for foodborne illnesses due to reduced immunity. Therefore, hygiene and sanitation should be of paramount importance in these patients. Outside food is not at all allowed. With recovery and reduction or withdrawal of medication, the diet can be normalized. Table 16.8 gives the nutrient requirements for adult with end-stage renal disease based on the type of therapy. 16.11 Renal calculi. Renal calculi or stones may be formed in the kidney, pelvis or ureter when the concentration of components in the urine reaches a level in which crystallization is possible. The process of stone formation is also called nephrolithiasis or urolithiasis. Figure 16.6 illustrates the kidney stone. A kidney stone is a solid mass that consists of a collection of tiny crystals. There can be one or more stones present at the same time in the kidney or in the ureter. They generally are composed of calcium salt, uric acid, cystic or struvite, triple salt of ammonium, magnesium and phosphorus. Crystals of these substances interspersed in an organic matrix or base can form stones of varying size. 16.11.1 Etiology. Kidney stones may form when the urine becomes too concentrated with certain substances. These substances may create small crystals that become stones. Different types of stones form under different circumstances. Although the exact cause of renal stones is not known, but multiple factors may play a role directly or indirectly, mostly related to urine composition and urinary tract environment. Some possible etiological factors in different types of calculi are enumerated herewith. Calcium stones, oxalate, phosphate and carbonate, excess intake of calcium. Oxalate, hypervitaminosis D, hyperparathyroidism, prolonged bed rest, renal tubular acidosis, idiopathic hypercalciuria, struvite stones, mostly due to urinary tract infection, UTI, uric acid stones, impaired purine metabolism with increased urinary excretion of uric acid. Cystine stones, hereditary metabolic defect in renal tubular reabsorption. Hot climates leading to over-concentrated urine. Changes in pH of urine also predisposed to stone formation, although there is a high intake of animal protein. Deficiency of vitamins B6 and magnesium are reported to play a role in the causation of these stones. Some types of stones tend to run in families. Some types may be associated with bowel disease, ileal bypass for obesity, or renal tubule defects. So whatever may be the cause of the renal stones, it causes discomfort and typical symptoms. These symptoms are highlighted next. 16.11.2 Clinical symptoms. The kidney stones may not produce symptoms until they begin to move down the ureter, causing pain. The pain is usually severe and often starts in the flank region, then moves down to the groin. The patient experiences blood in the urine, severe pain, weakness, and in some cases fever. Laboratory examination and chemical analysis can help determine location, size, and main constituent of stones to determine the treatment. So then, what is the treatment or management strategy for renal calculi? We shall learn about this in the next section, with particular focus on dietary management. 16.11.3 Dietary management. The goal of treatment of renal calculi is to relieve symptoms and prevent further complications. Treatment, therefore, varies depending on the type of stone and the extent of symptoms or complications. Kidney stones usually pass on their own. In acute stage with stones less than 5 mm in diameter, it may pass in the urine by drinking large quantities of fluid, especially water, and needs no specific treatment. Stones more than 7 mm in diameter may require surgical treatment or lithotripsy, by which large stones are broken down and excreted in the urine. Although role of diet in the formation of urinary stones is not well established, it is advisable to have liberal fluid intake, a balanced diet, and restrict foods based on the main constituent of the stones. Besides liberal fluid intake and some dietary restriction, urine pH control helps based on the chemical composition of the stone, mainly via acidifying or alkalinizing agents or diet binding agents to bind the stone constituent may also be used. Let us now have a look at the dietary sources of various constituents of the renal stones. 16.11.4 Dietary sources of various constituents of the renal stones. Dietary sources of potassium, sodium, calcium, oxalate, and uric acid are given in this section. We begin our study with the dietary sources of potassium. A. Sources of potassium. Table 16.10 presents the sources of potassium. The methods or direction for leaching potassium is also highlighted subsequently in this section. Table 16.10 Sources of potassium in the diet. Potassium, 100 grams vegetable. 0 to 100 mg, 101 to 200 mg, 201 mg and above. Snake gourd, capsicum, lettuce, beetroot. Tinder bottle gourd, fenugreek leaves. Zucchini, brinjal, bread beans. Cucumber, peas. Green mango, cauliflower, colocasia. Onion, small cabbage, spinach. Star fruit, carrot, potato. Papaya, raw radish, white. Pumpkin, green lady's finger, green tomato. Bitter gourd, field beans. On review of table 16.10, you would realize that it is not possible to always consume only low potassium content foods. Therefore, next we present you a method by which we can leach potassium and reduce its content to a major extent in foods. Directions, methods for leaching potassium. Method I. Wash, peel and cut vegetables into small pieces. Soak in warm water for 2 to 3 hours. Discard water. Add large volume of fresh water and cook the vegetables. Discard water. Method 2. Peel vegetables and cut into small pieces. Bring to boil in a large quantity of water. Discard excess water and cook in a large volume of fresh water. Discard excess water. Let us next have a look at a few dietary sources of Na, Ca, oxalate and uric acid. B. Sources of sodium. Food items with a high sodium content, these food items should be avoided. Salt, baking powder, bicarbonate of soda, canned, preserved and processed food items as processed cheese, sauce, margarine, etc. Bacon, ham and sausages. Meat and yeast extracts like Marmite. Salted chips, nuts, popcorn and biscuits. Commercial salad dressings and sauces. Soup cubes. Malted beverages like Boost, Bonvita and Protenex. Flavor enhancers such as monosodium glutamate, MSG. C. Sources of calcium, oxalate and uric acid. Calcium. Beans, cauliflower, egg yolk, figs, milk and milk products like cheese, paneer, curds. Molasses and potatoes. Oxalate. Cashew nuts, chickpea, chocolate, cocoa, custard apple, ground nuts, spinach, strawberries. Tomatoes and tea. Uric acid. Fish herring, fish roe, salmon, sardines, kidney, liver, meat extracts and soups, and sweet bread. We just learned about the dietary sources of various minerals which may or may not contribute to the formation of renal calculi. Lastly, we move on to a few commonly available commercial enteral nutrition formulas which could be of help to renal patients. 16.12 Commonly available commercial enteral nutrition formulas for RENALPATIENTS. Earlier in this course in Unit 4, you may recall studying about the enteral and parenteral feeding and the formulas commonly used for these feeding methods. Some common enteral nutrition formulas for renal patients are highlighted here in this section. RenoCare I, for pre-dialysis state, sachet 51.5 grams provide. Low protein, 3.75 grams, sachet. Low sodium, 4.10 MEq, sachet. Low potassium, 2.40 MEq, sachet. Low phosphorus, 80 mg, sachet. RenoCare 2, for dialysis state, sachet 52.5 grams provide. Moderate protein, 8.80 grams, sachet. Low sodium, 4.10 MEq, sachet. Low potassium, 240 MEq, sachet. Low phosphorus, 86.0 mg, sachet. Nutrinol CRF, composition per 100 grams. Protein 7.74 grams, sodium 202.72 mg. Potassium 288.83 mg. Phosphorus 188.86 mg. Nutrinol dialysis, composition per 100 grams, protein 18.09 grams, sodium 214.71 mg. Potassium 27,356 mg. Phosphorus 177.65 mg. 16.13 Summary. In this unit, we learned that kidney performs a myriad of functions including excretory, endocrinal and metabolic. The kidney maintains the fluid, electrolyte balance and normal volume, pH and osmolality of blood. Metabolic waste products and toxins are excreted from the body while essential nutrients are reabsorbed by the kidneys. Further, the unit focused on the diseases of the kidney. These diseases alter the capacity of the kidneys to perform the functions. The common diseases in which diet plays an important role are glomerulonephritis, nephrotic syndrome, acute renal failure, chronic renal failure and renal calculi. We learned that these diseases have multiple etiological factors and the clinical manifestations and biochemical parameters govern the dietary management of these diseases. The main objectives of the dietary management are to reduce the excretory workload of the kidney and prevent progression of renal damage while maintaining satisfactory nutritional status and as near normal fluid, acid base and electrolyte balance. To meet these objectives, modifications in the diet are required mainly for protein, sodium, potassium, fluid, calcium and phosphate. The main objective is to try and maintain the internal milieu of the body. In case of poor oral intake, commercially available supplements in the market may have to be used. When the kidney function fails, dialysis or transplantation is recommended. Finally, the unit focused on renal calculi. Patients with kidney stones have to be treated according to the type of stones and diet therapy is recommended thereafter. Thus, nutritional care will depend largely on the type of renal disease and biochemical and clinical manifestations. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with next chapter.